My name is Lucy Wright. I'm 30, and life, by most standards, looked like it was finally aligning. I worked as an emergency nurse, which meant long shifts that left me exhausted yet oddly exhilarated, and nights that blurred into early mornings. I was used to chaos, but somehow, chaos in my personal life felt different. I thought I was in a healthy, steady relationship with Robert, my boyfriend of 4 months. He was 32, an architect with a quiet confidence and a smile that made you want to linger in the moment. We met on a dating app, laughed through our first coffee date, and quickly found ourselves entwined in plans and dreams. We had joked about living together someday, traveling, and even the ridiculous idea of a dog we could never agree on. Everything felt right, until it didn't. It started 2 months ago when Vanessa, Robert's ex-girlfriend, unexpectedly reappeared in his life. According to him, she was just reaching out because she was going through a rough patch and needed someone to talk to. Robert's casual tone should have reassured me, but my gut tightened with unease. "Lucy," he had said one evening while stirring his coffee, "Vanessa texted me today. She's struggling a bit, I think. Just wanted to catch up." I nodded slowly, chopping vegetables for dinner. "Are you planning to meet her?" I asked. My voice was calm, but inside, a storm was already brewing. He shrugged. "Maybe coffee sometime. I mean, she's my ex, but it's been years. Nothing to worry about." I wanted to trust him. I really did. But over the next few weeks, small things began to gnaw at me. Texts during dinner, a lingering smile at her name, sudden changes to plans with little explanation. Coffee turned into lunch, lunch into drinks after work. Every time, Robert reassured me it was innocent, that Vanessa was just a friend. Then came the Friday night that shifted everything. We had planned a quiet evening. Takeout, a movie, no distractions. Around 6, Robert texted. "Hey babe, running late?" Vanessa called. "She's really upset. I'll stop by her place for a bit. Be there by 8. 8 came and went. 9. I tried not to panic. At 10, I texted him. "Everything okay?" "Sorry. Lost track of time. She was going through a lot. Heading to you now." By 10:15, he arrived. He was apologetic, but not remorseful, as if the delay was a simple inconvenience rather than a recurring pattern. "Robert," I said softly, keeping my voice steady despite the rising tension, "this is the 3rd time this week our plans have been pushed aside for her." He looked at me, defensive. "Lucy, I can't ignore a friend who's struggling. She's just Vanessa. It's nothing else." "Nothing else?" My hands clenched. "She's your ex. I'm your girlfriend. I feel like I'm competing for your attention." He shook his head. "You're overreacting. I'm just being there for her. I thought you trusted me." I wanted to believe I was overreacting. But deep down, a small, insistent voice whispered, "You're not crazy. Pay attention." That night, I lay in bed, my phone glowing silently beside me. His texts had tried to soothe me, but they only made the uncertainty louder. By Wednesday, I decided I needed to see the situation for myself. I found Vanessa on social media, traced the messages Robert had kept so casually, and began piecing together the reality behind his reassurances. The unease I'd felt wasn't paranoia, it was clarity slowly crystallizing. I needed answers. Not just from Robert, but from Vanessa, whose presence had shifted the balance of our relationship without my consent. It was time to step out of my own doubt and into action. The next morning, I woke to a quiet apartment that felt too big, too empty. Robert was already at work, leaving traces of his presence. Coffee mugs, a jacket tossed over the chair, a faint, lingering cologne. I ran my fingers over the counter, replaying our dinner argument in my mind. My trust in him was fraying, but I still loved him. That made every doubt feel sharper, heavier. By midweek, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. Texts from Vanessa pinged at all hours. "I miss our conversations," one read. Another, "You always understood me in a way no one else does." The words weren't overtly flirtatious, but there was warmth, familiarity. Robert's gentle responses only added to my unease. I decided it was time to confront him. "Robert," I said one evening after work, leaning against the doorway, "we need to talk about Vanessa." He paused, a faint tension in his shoulders. "What about her?" "I can't keep pretending everything's fine. You've been prioritizing her over me, again. Canceling plans, late nights, constant messaging. I feel invisible in our relationship." His eyes softened, but his tone remained defensive. "Lucy, she's going through some stuff. You know I can't just ignore that. She's my friend, not a threat." A sharp edge crept into my voice. Not a threat. Robert, she's your ex. And it doesn't feel like just a friend when you cancel dinner for her or leave me waiting for hours. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're reading too much into it. I'm not doing anything wrong. The argument spiraled into the familiar tug-of-war of trust versus doubt. I wanted him to see my side, to recognize how his actions affected me, but I also realized that words alone weren't enough. I needed evidence, clarity that could no longer be filtered through Robert's reassurances. Late that night, alone in my apartment, I made a decision. I would reach out to Vanessa directly. Not to fight, not to accuse, but to understand. Her response came quickly, almost too quickly. Lucy? Wow. Okay. I didn't expect to hear from you. I guess, yeah, we can talk. We arranged to meet at a public cafe, neutral ground. I would keep my composure, remain calm, and gather the truth. Robert didn't need to know yet. Part of me wrestled with guilt. Part of me knew I had no other choice if I wanted to protect my own heart. The days leading up to the meeting were a blur. Every ping of my phone made my stomach tighten. Each text from Robert felt heavier, layered with unintended implications. I wanted to trust him, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I replayed every interaction in my mind. Vanessa's messages, Robert's reassurances, the nights I'd lain awake questioning myself. When the morning of the cafe meeting arrived, I felt a strange combination of fear and resolve. I dressed carefully, something neutral but confident. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, a mix of anxiety and determination. You're doing the right thing, I whispered to myself. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes early, scanning the cafe before settling at a table near the window. She looked polished, controlled, yet there was a flicker of discomfort when she saw me. I sat across from her, my hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, trying to project calm I didn't entirely feel. Lucy, she said softly, I wasn't expecting this. I need to understand what's been happening, I said carefully. Robert keeps telling me it's nothing, that you're just a friend. But your messages, your timing, it doesn't feel that simple. Her eyes shifted, and for the first time, I saw hesitation. I didn't mean to make things complicated. But Robert has been giving me mixed signals, too. The conversation was delicate, a dance between truth and omission. I listened as she described what she thought was innocent. But every word, every nuance painted a different picture. Flirty undertones, repeated invitations to meet alone, and her subtle encouragement of Robert's attention to her made the situation unmistakable. By the end of our talk, the weight in my chest had shifted. My suspicions were confirmed. Robert had allowed, perhaps even enabled, this dynamic, and Vanessa's behavior wasn't as just friendly as he claimed. Walking back to my car, I felt heartbreak, but also clarity. I knew I couldn't continue in a relationship built on half-truths and divided loyalties. I wasn't naive, and I wasn't imagining this. My instincts had been right all along. That night, I stared at my phone and typed a message to Robert. We need to talk. Can you come over tomorrow? I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt resolve. Tomorrow, I would confront the reality, not just the lies, and I would finally take control of my own story. The next evening, I waited in my apartment, rehearsing every possible scenario in my head. When Robert arrived, his smile was cautious, almost wary, like he sensed this wasn't going to be an ordinary conversation. Lucy, he began, voice tentative. Sit, I interrupted softly but firmly, gesturing toward the couch. I took the chair across from him, needing physical distance for the conversation ahead. We need to talk about Vanessa, about everything. Robert's face shifted from nervousness to defensiveness. I don't understand. You're blowing this out of proportion. I met with Vanessa today, I said, watching for any flicker of reaction. His expression faltered. I needed to understand what's really happening without your version filtering it. What? He asked, his voice sharp now. Why would you do that? Because I trusted my instincts, Robert, and those instincts told me something wasn't right. I told him everything Vanessa had revealed, how she had received Robert's attention, the flirty undertones in her messages, her subtle encouragement of his time with her alone. I held nothing back. Robert ran a hand through his hair, staring at me. You're making this sound worse than it is. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I didn't want to hurt her. I thought you'd understand. Understand? I said, my voice rising slightly, tinged with disbelief. You can't keep prioritizing her over me and expect me to just understand. Friends don't cancel plans 3 times a week to check on an ex. Friends don't flirt and reminisce about the past while ignoring the present. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Me, resolute. Him, caught in the corner of truth he didn't want to face. Lucy, I didn't mean to hurt you, he said finally, softer now, almost pleading. But you did, I replied, repeatedly. And the worst part, you lied about it. You framed your contact with Vanessa as innocent, as something necessary, when in reality, it's been manipulating both of us. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the echoes of nights spent waiting, wondering, questioning myself. I realized then that love wasn't enough to sustain a relationship where trust had been so eroded. You're breaking up with me? Robert asked, his voice tight, a mixture of disbelief and desperation. Yes, I said, calm but firm, because I can't stay in a relationship where my instincts are dismissed and my trust is repeatedly violated. I love you, Robert, but love isn't enough to override manipulation and dishonesty. He stood abruptly, pacing. Lucy, you're making a huge mistake. Vanessa is just... she's harmless. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said, shaking my head. I've seen the truth. I met her, I listened, and I know what's been happening. And I won't let either of you rewrite reality to make me the villain. He stopped, looking at me with a mixture of anger and fear. You're leaving me over this? Over her? Yes, I said again, because it's not about her. It's about us. It's about your choices, and I won't accept being lied to anymore. Robert's face twisted, a flash of desperation. Lucy, you're going to regret this. I might, I admitted softly, but I'll never regret trusting myself. I'll never regret knowing my worth. And with that, I watched him leave. The door closed behind him, and I was alone. Not lonely, not hurt, not defeated, just free. Free to reclaim my life, my decisions, and my future. Later, I spoke with Vanessa one last time, not to argue, not to scold, but to make it clear. Boundaries had been crossed, manipulations exposed, and I would not tolerate further interference. For the first time in weeks, I felt a quiet calm settle over me. That night, I texted a friend, someone who knew the entire situation. It's over. I feel lighter. Scared, yes, but clear, free. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Life after Robert felt surreal at first. The apartment, once heavy with tension and doubt, now seemed full of space. Literal and emotional. I could breathe without the constant gnawing worry of what was unsaid, what was hidden, what I might discover next. A week after the Café confrontation, I met Michael. He wasn't dramatic, he wasn't intense. He was just kind, straightforward, and genuinely present. Our connection grew slowly, intentionally. He didn't rush me, didn't push me to forget the past. Instead, he listened. He laughed at my dry humor, shared his own insecurities, and respected the space I needed to heal. One evening, over a quiet dinner, I told him about Robert, not in gory detail, but enough for him to understand. It was exhausting, I admitted. Feeling manipulated, doubting myself. I thought I knew love, but I had to learn boundaries the hard way. Michael reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You did the right thing, Lucy. You trusted yourself. That's strength, not weakness. I smiled, a real, unguarded smile. For the first time in months, I felt entirely seen, not just by someone else, but by myself. Work and friends filled my days, but now with a newfound clarity. I blocked Robert on every platform, deleted old photos that tied me to the past, and allowed myself to grieve. Not the loss of him, but the loss of the illusions I had held about him. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't resentful. I was awake, alert, and ready for life on my own terms. Through mutual friends, I learned that Robert and Vanessa had drifted apart. Neither reached out again, and their influence on my life faded like a shadow retreating at dusk. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I simply acknowledged the truth and kept moving forward. 3 months later, Michael and I were planning a small weekend getaway. He suggested a cabin by the lake, something quiet, private, away from the chaos of the city. I laughed when he asked, "Are you ready to leave all that drama behind?" "I think I am," I replied, and for the first time it wasn't tentative, it was certain. That night, I journaled, something I hadn't done in years. I wrote about betrayal, about heartbreak, about trust lost and regained. But I also wrote about resilience, about boundaries, about the power of listening to one's instincts. I realized that every tear, every sleepless night, every confrontation had brought me closer to myself. In the end, I didn't regret Robert, and I didn't regret Vanessa. They were chapters in a story that led me here, to a place where I could trust, love, and protect myself without compromise. I looked out the window at the city lights, feeling a calm I hadn't known in months. I knew challenges would come, and relationships would always carry risk, but I also knew that I could navigate them, stronger, wiser, and fully in charge of my own life. And as Michael's hand found mine across the table, I smiled, thinking, this is just the beginning.